Back in Britain between the late 1940s and early 1960s, thousands of young men stepped out of ordinary life and into uniform, not because they chose to, but because the country asked it of them. It was a moment that arrived quietly, often with a single envelope on the doormat, but the experience that followed shaped them far beyond their 2 years of service. These are 15 things national service truly taught the last boys who lived it. Number 1. The day the letter arrived. It often began with a thin envelope resting on the hallway floor, the kind of official post that made entire households fall silent. Boys came home from work or school to find their mothers holding it gently, as if the paper itself carried something heavy. Inside was a date, a destination, and the sudden realization that childhood was ending faster than they expected. There were no grand speeches and no moment to prepare, just a quiet understanding that life, in all its familiar comfort, had been paused. Some felt fear, others pride, but nearly all felt the weight of stepping into something far bigger than themselves. That single letter carried more than orders. It carried a line between the life they knew and the man they would become. Number 2. The haircut that stripped away boyhood. At training camps, barbers didn't make conversation. They didn't ask how you liked it. They simply pressed the clippers to your scalp and let the hair fall in neat piles. The sound was constant, sharp, and unforgettable. A buzzing reminder that individuality no longer belonged to you. Boys who had carefully combed their fringes that morning watched themselves become strangers in the mirror. It wasn't about style. It was about unity, discipline, and the quiet truth that you were entering a world that would not bend to you. That first haircut was the true beginning, a moment that cut away the last threads of boyhood. Number 3. The uniform that never seemed to fit. Scratchy wool, stiff boots, brass buttons that gleamed even when you were too tired to care. Nothing about the uniform felt natural. Sleeves sagged, collars itched, boots blistered. Yet once it was on, everything changed. You belonged to something older, stricter, and far more structured. Tailoring wasn't about comfort, it was about sameness. The smallest crease could earn a lecture. A loose thread could mean extra drills. But slowly, almost quietly, boys began to feel a strange pride in that sameness. The uniform was uncomfortable, but it unified, steadied, and strengthened them. Number 4. The shock of barracks life. Home had softness, warmth, and rhythm. Barracks life had none of those. Days began before sunrise with shouting that echoed off metal bed frames. Washing was done in cold water, shared with dozens of other boys who were just as exhausted. Tin trays clattered at meal times as conversations faded under the weight of routine. Everything was structured, timed, watched. Even rest felt like something you had to earn. Yet after a week, the barracks no longer felt alien. They became the world, harsh, disciplined, but strangely bonding. Number 5. The discipline that seeped into everything. Discipline wasn't taught in lessons. It grew invisibly through repetition. The way you folded clothes with sharp corners. The way you stood straighter when a superior walked by. The instinct to answer quickly, correctly, even before fully thinking. Imperfect beds meant consequences. Untidy boots meant another round of polishing. But beneath the pressure, many recruits found something unexpected, a sense of pride. A feeling that they were becoming sharper, steadier, and more capable than they'd ever imagined outside the barracks. Number 6. The brothers you didn't choose. Friendships didn't form through small talk. They formed in rain-soaked drill fields, in long marches where silence carried more meaning than words, in shared cigarettes after lights out, in bunk beds separated by only a few inches. Boys from completely different lives, factory workers, students, miners, shop assistants, learned to rely on one another with an intensity that stayed with them long after service ended. Hardship doesn't just build character, it builds families. Number 7. Punishments shared, mistakes shared. One of the quickest lessons was that nothing was truly individual. If one boy stepped out of line, the whole unit paid for it. A single poorly made bed could mean extra drills for everyone. A missed cue in formation brought a collective punishment that often hit harder than the original mistake. Tempers flared, arguments happened, but ties mended quickly because resentment could only survive so long when you depended on one another to make it through each day. It taught boys to think beyond themselves, to be protective, to carry each other through the hardest moments. Number 8. The postings far from home. Not every young man served in Britain. Many found themselves in West Germany, Cyprus, Korea, or the Suez Canal zone, places where the world felt larger, louder, and far more unpredictable. Letters from home arrived late, sometimes weeks after they were posted. New climates, new tensions, and new dangers reshaped boys faster than any drill sergeant could. Some stood guard along uneasy borders. Others experienced conflict firsthand. The world didn't feel theoretical anymore. It felt urgent, real, and often frightening. These deployments turned boys into men in ways peace never could. Number 9. The sacrifices nobody talked about. This was the part many viewers felt was missing in the competitors' video, the quiet, painful truth. Not every national serviceman came home safely. Some returned with injuries that lasted a lifetime. Some returned changed in ways their families struggled to understand. And some didn't return at all. Their stories were shorter, quieter, and too often left out. Communities mourned quietly. Mothers grieved quietly. And the boys who served beside them carried those losses silently for the rest of their lives. National service was not a full wartime draft, but it carried risks and it carried sacrifices. Number 10. Coming home to a world that had moved on. Stepping back into civilian life was often more disorienting than leaving it. Streets looked the same, families looked the same, but something felt different. Boys came home older, disciplined, more aware, but unsure how to return to ordinary routines. Friends had jobs, marriages, plans. Siblings had grown taller. Apprenticeships had moved forward. Home felt familiar but distant, and it took time before life found its new balance. Many quietly carried the sense that they no longer fit exactly where they once belonged. Number 11. The quiet habits that never left. Even decades later, you could spot a former national serviceman in the smallest details. The way he folded laundry with crisp corners. The way he stood a little straighter when someone entered a room. The instinct to arrive early, tools ready, shoes cleaned. These were not rules anymore. They were echoes, habits absorbed so deeply that they became part of the man, not the training. Number 12. The pride in belonging to something bigger. Not every boy enjoyed national service. Some questioned it, resented it, dreaded every morning. But many also carried a quiet, unshakable pride. Pride in answering a call their country made. Pride in pushing through hardship. Pride in discovering strength they didn't know they had. It wasn't about heroics. It was about belonging to a history that stretched beyond themselves. Number 13. The end of an era. By 1960, the final call-up letters were sent. By 1963, national service ended quietly, without ceremony, without national applause, without recognition. Just uniforms returned, lockers emptied, forms signed. The last boys served in a Britain already changing, stepping into a decade of new freedoms, new culture, and a country ready to move past conscription. Their chapter closed without fanfare, but not without lasting meaning. Number 14. The stories captured in films, books, and memory. Over time, the experience of national service found its place in memoirs, sitcoms, dramas, and music. Some tales were humorous, others heavy with regret, and many filled with nostalgia. Cold mornings, shouted drills, boots worn thin, friendships forged through mud and exhaustion. These became the material of stories passed down through families, capturing a complicated chapter with honesty rather than idealization. Number 15. The imprint on the nation. Even now, long after the last march ended, the effects of national service remain. In the posture of older men who stand a little straighter than they need to, in the meticulous way they organize a garage or fold a jumper, in the discipline, the endurance, the quiet pride they pass down to their children and grandchildren. National service wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it shaped a generation caught between war and peace. A generation whose footsteps still echo softly across Britain today. What do you think? Should national service have stayed, disappeared sooner, or been reinvented entirely? Let us know in the comments and share your stories or those of your family. Britain remembers things best when we tell them together.